Good morning, Dennis. How are you doing?
Fiti sana, ukaje?
Kabisa mzuri sana.
Good to see you.
Good to see you. So it's a different place.
Looking dapper, eh?
Asante sana. Never thought that it was going to be like
Never
this.
thought it will ever end up here.
Well, here we are on the second Thursday of July of June. So I'm getting my numbers crossed already.
It's allowed.
Second Thursday of June, and what it is that it's the day when the budget will be read. The Cabinet Secretary will come and tell the country what will happen in terms of how the nation in the next year, between 2026 and 2027, will spend money, where it will get it from, and how it will be used. That all is in the budget statement that will be read before Parliament later on today. And in the Situation Room with KTN today on SpiceFM, what we're doing is that we're having a special coverage of that budget. We will talk economics. We will look at the numbers. We will look at the biggest losers and winners in terms of those budget numbers and those estimates that have been given. When Cabinet Secretary FCPA John Mbadi comes before Parliament today, he'll let us know what they've been able to put together since the 30th of August. And what exactly it means in terms of how the country will spend its money, where it'll get it from in the next 1 year.
Yeah, and I think as well, I will just look at the big winners, the losers, and everything in between, how much we have to borrow to fund the deficit as well. But remember, we're not doing this alone. We have Kelly Boss as well, who's here. Kelly Boss, how are you? Good morning.
I'm good. Good morning.
Salama?
Niko sawa.
So today is that day for you guys, eh? The business desk.
It's that day that we talk about how the government is planning to spend its money. And of course, the government thinks about spending first before the money itself comes. And so there is, of course, the finance bill that was out that thinks about how that money will be raised through the fiscal year. And of course, most recently, the appropriation bill that tends to project how that money will be spent and where. That is outside, but today, of course, the substantive one will be tabled by the Cabinet Secretary, John Mbadi, on Parliament, and tell us exactly what money is going where and how it's being spent.
Yes, we look forward to that. But Tindu, lazima tusalamia watu.
Lazima tusalamia watu. Just remember that indeed live streams continue to be up. It's not a welcome to our audience on KTN. It's a welcome to everybody here on KTN and also on SpiceFM. Live streams are up on YouTube, Facebook, and on X. And we'll say a hello to you in just a minute then to be able to hear where it is that you're tuned in from. And as we look at those numbers in terms of what's going to happen today. So you'll let us know where you're tuned in from this morning. We're able to get your live stream. That live stream is special coverage, again, of the budget. So it looks a little bit different, but you're still in the Situation Room this morning. We're broadcasting what we call a simulcast, broadcasting on KTN and on SpiceFM as usual. So you can let us know where it is that you're tuned in from, and we'll say a hello to you, and of course get some of those numbers into play. All right, so where are we this morning? Peter Kiari is tuned in this morning, tuning from Mombasa. And I think a little bit of something to start off the day. Before we get into say good morning, you do have a problem for us, don't we?
Yes,
we can't run away. We've been in Guinea the whole week.
Yes. Now, the river never drinks its own water, and the tree doesn't eat its own tree. Doesn't eat its own fruit.
Okay, you're going to have to start again.
I love it. So the river never drinks its own water, and the tree never eats its own fruit.
Well, I guess we should get Kelly to tell us what his interpretation of that proverb is.
The river does not drink its water?
Its own water, and the tree never eats its own fruit. How would you interpret? What do you think Ghanaians are telling us today?
I think Ghanaians are telling us that is a more like a generational thought of point of view, in the sense, if you live on earth, whatever your role you play, you have to think multi-generational, that what you do today shouldn't be particularly what you enjoy today.
Right.
Exactly.
See?
You see? I think you should join us tomorrow morning.
Kesho, eh?
For sure.
As we look at post-budget.
As we look at post-budget, of course, we're going to be able to say what proverbs are in line there. So the Ghanaians are onto something, that's for sure. Of course, I think that we're all giving something, that your role is not just for you, but other people to enjoy. Imagine if the tree ate all of its own fruit. Okay, so let's say hello to people who are tuned in this morning. We know that Peter Kiari is tuning from Mombasa and also has a word to share this morning and says, good morning from Mombasa. Instead of wishing you were someone else, be proud of who you are. You never know who has been looking for you wishing they were you. Something to remember. Kisa Daniel is tuned in this morning from Attack in Uganda. Good morning, Spice FM. TSR budget day. Meanwhile, the country is still choking in debt. This is David Mangera already, and we're getting into those things this morning. We're going to be looking at those numbers. Nashon Gogi is tuned in this morning. Good morning, Ndu. Dennis, is Shah still down? This would be day 6 if it is. It is. If so, then maybe what Riggy G said a few weeks ago about Shah may stop working in 6 months. Love to you all from Arizona. Luhimbo is tuning in this morning from Dar es Salaam. I will keep saying this over and over again. Once you paralyze institutions, the country cannot move forward. And we get imbeciles in political leaders. Okay, it's still a little bit early. It's before coffee time, but it seems that everybody's awake. Bwangi Juma says, good morning, Spice FM. It's budget day, and we want to look forward to more pocket raids. And we look forward to more pocket raids by the taxman. James says, hello, no matter how much one craves choma, you don't slaughter the family dairy cow. Buy the future and don't sell. Yeah. Okay. Leo says, hello, Princess Ndu and Aseto. The amount of forest being annexed by frivolous reasons is astonishing. And we start with Kakamega Forest, Nairobi National Park, now Meru. There's a lot. Isakale says, good morning. Hey, you're looking good. He has said you.
Okay.
However, I'm fully persuaded this government doesn't make the same mistake twice. They make it 5 or 6 times, is what Isakale is saying, just to make sure that they got it right. Wanda is tuned in from Toronto and says, good morning, Njoana Seto. You guys are looking fantastic. Asante Sana. Clement Ochola this morning says, good morning, Njoana Seto, watching from Malindi. There's nothing new to wait in the budget. Mutuflani, the princess and the gentleman. See, Munatesa this morning. Kidogo.
That's why we are here.
Very good morning, Spice FM team, says Tibbs Muge. So the team is a lot bigger this morning. Of course, as we do this, grabbing the entire team across the Standard Group to then be able to have this special coverage of the budget. Bonjour too, says that, Linda Gola, also tuned in this morning. It's good to see you guys are critically dissecting the budget here in Luhimbo, rather according to Luhimbo here in Dar es Salaam. There's no radio or TV that would do that. Yeah. Sheila Masasabi says, good morning, guys. Aseto, Ndu and the TSR family, you guys are looking hot. Waiting eagerly for that special coverage on the budget. Have a great day, and to you as well. Cliff Sunday says, good morning, Spice FM team, and good morning as well, KTN. Good change up today with more in-depth look at the budget. And if we have any hope in Kenya for fiscal discipline by the government, those are some of the things that we'll definitely be looking into. Melbourne is saying, knock, knock. We're going to knock, knock this morning and see who's on the other side of the door in terms of the money this morning. Mutuflani says, KTN, we forgive you for the chair. Next time, bring thrones.
All right. King and Queen, eh?
Exactly.
Yeah.
This we're talking about. The president is still on his world tour. It's interesting because things are still happening in Finland.
True.
And rather in Norway yesterday, in terms of a fishing port, some of those things that we're talking to this morning. Jackie Onyanga is tuning in from Kisumu this morning. That's Kimiak says the president is still on his world tour while his last finance bill of his one term is presented today. I need you to trust me when I tell you that nothing good will come out of this Kenya Kwanza regime.
Let me tell you, if consistency was a country, Kimiak would be the president of that country.
If consistency needed an image in the dictionary, the picture next to it would be Kimiak. Good morning, Njoana Seto. We are waiting to see what the budget has for us. Otherwise, you are looking fine. Live from Kisumu, and a very good day to you. Wanda says, an African proverb for you. As children of the same parent, we can share as little as a locust's head, meaning that fairness is very important when resources are scarce. All right. So those are some of the things that we're looking at this morning. Good morning, everybody. Wherever it is that you're tuned in from, the region, the country, the region, and indeed the world. It's budget day in East Africa. And we're looking into the details of it today, especially for what Kenya is then going to do. You will know today, sure, in terms of what is going to happen coming out from Treasury, coming out from the folks who've been crunching the numbers for the last 1 year, and see what's going to come out of that, where Kenya is going to get its money from, how it's going to spend it, and how it's actually going to affect you.
True.
So it's the Situation Room on Spice FM, on KTN this morning. Ndra and Dennis with you, and we're going to look into the headlines in just a little bit and see what it is that's making the news. All right?
Kabisa.
Okay, so we'll get into that. And This morning, on the front page of Kenya's bold newspaper, The Standard, the headline today, People versus Mbadi. Of course, it is budget day. That head today is Treasury CS John Mbadi unveils a 4.8 trillion shilling budget after the opposition under the umbrella United Alternative Government unveiled a rival 4.3 trillion People's Budget yesterday, in which they proposed spending cuts, scrapping of SHA and the housing levy, and increased funding for health and education. The Kenya Kwanza government is under immense pressure due to soaring fuel prices, rising inflation, and growing resistance to new taxes. The ordinary Mwananchi say the government under President Ruto is tone deaf to what matters to them as it continues spending beyond its means while burdening Kenyans with higher taxes and heavy borrowing to fund a ballooning budget. Of course, budget is carried in the papers today on page 4, 5, 6, and 7. What does the opposition say versus the government? Total budget, 4.32 trillion. All cuts are concentrated in the executive administration waste, non-essential security overheads, vanity infrastructure, and cancelled contracts. So they say that out. What the government is saying on their budget, 4.82 trillion, it's an increase by 124.9 billion shillings from the 2025-2026 supplementary estimates 1, with recurrent expenditure rising due to higher interest payments on existing public debt. Projected ordinary revenue, and I know Kelly Boss will be giving us some of that information later, but according to the opposition budget, 3.72 trillion shillings is what they're proposing. This would include a sale of stalled affordable housing projects at market value, simplified rental income, taxations targeting large-scale property investors, evading taxes through complexity. What the projected ordinary revenue is 2.99 trillion. This will be largely driven by improved performance on income tax, VAT, import duty, and excise duty collection. So what are we seeing there? That there's more that's coming in from taxing you and me.
Your pocket.
Fiscal deficit on the opposition, 593.5 billion shillings. Domestic borrowing capped at 500 billion shillings, getting rid of ghost workers, duplicate payments, and reprioritization of non-essential capital projects. While the fiscal deficit, according to the budget that Mbadi will give this afternoon, this will be primarily financed through domestic borrowing, approximately 90% of total financing, indicating a significant reliance on local sources. So that's what that looks like on the headlines, rather the front page of the Standard today. We also know that the World Cup bonanza, let the games begin, is what we're looking at today. The first matches of the World Cup take place today. And looking in on page 2, House team warns tons of raw sugar import could be harmful.
Yep.
In case you didn't know, there's some more sugar.
Surprise, as if we didn't know.
Was it hiding somewhere? Youth SMEs urged to embrace manufacturing for more jobs.
Wait, repeat that again?
Youth SMEs urged to embrace manufacturing for more jobs.
How's the cost of doing business?
I don't know, but if you were to embrace something, it had to be there, first of all, in order for you to embrace it, one would imagine.
Exactly.
So it was interesting because this next story finds its way into one of the columns on page 2. Nairobi MCA sat yesterday and they decided that 2 people who sit in the administration of Nairobi County should actually be arrested.
Yes.
Nairobi MCA's order arrest of missing finance CEC Karich. The Nairobi County Assembly has ordered the arrest of finance CEC Charles Karich. Yesterday failed to appear before the Committee on Implementation to discuss the 2026-2027 county budget.
Isn't the man in Dubai? Did he come back?
I don't know.
Because if he were back, then we would have known that he would have been arrested because there was a warrant of arrest, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
he could be a bit busy.
MCS, Nairobi, Ako Dubai.
So they said, but we also agree that he should be arrested because you're making our work very difficult. It's interesting that they're talking about budgets 2026, 2027, and the man who holds the purse for the county then is absent because what does that mean?
Yeah.
Looking into other stories, lunchtime, Baba Tonglo relive life struggles and amid tight budgets. Many years since these songs were done, most Kenyans still can't afford basic needs. Do you want to sing one of Baba Tongolo's songs? I don't even know.
I can't even remember.
Can't remember.
Forgive me.
Okay, we forgive you.
Forgive me.
Husband now loses battle to bury gospel musician Wandeto. The family of late gospel singer Rachel Muthoni Wandeto can finally breathe a sigh of relief after a Kerugoya court brought to an end a burial dispute. Resident Magistrate Harrison Mwangi yesterday authorized the release of Wandeto's body to her mother, Sarah Njeri, paving the way for burial preparations to resume at the singer's ancestral home in Kirinyaga County. So it doesn't go to her husband, body goes to her mother. And of course, it is Budget Day 2026-2027 this Thursday. The Cabinet Secretary goes to Parliament this afternoon. Mbadi's 4.8 trillion shilling budget raises tax fears amid economic stress. Some of the things that we're looking at today. At a glance, 4.82 trillion shillings, you're going to hear that number quite a lot today, is the budget for the next year. 2.899 trillion is what the national government will spend. Of this, 1.98 trillion will be recurrent. So you're keeping the lights on, paying salaries and things like this. And then 845 billion will go to development. 420 billion counties allocation. So they still didn't really agree. They wanted to get that up to 445 billion from the Senate at least. And the National Assembly wanted to bring that a little bit lower.
I have a suggestion.
What's your suggestion?
At the West, you have the money for the counties.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
We know exactly what we need to do.
Somebody somewhere is listening.
Yeah.
I reckon. 50.8 billion shillings is Parliament's allocation. That's the money that they get to do all the things that they need to do. All right. 30.4 billion shillings is the judiciary allocation. The budget will be financed through 3.63 total revenue that include tax revenue of 2.99 trillion and appropriations in aid of 644 billion. So some of these terms, you're not really sure what they are. That's why we're doing this today, to then be able to look into what those mean. And of course, Kelly Boss will be able to share some of that. 1.1 trillion shillings is the budget deficit. So when we're saying what the budget deficit is, that means this is the money that they do not have.
We do not have.
Yes. 1.1 trillion shillings is in the budget, but you don't have that money.
Yes.
So you're going to look for it. And the only way to look for it is borrow it. And from what we've seen so far, that the domestic debt, which according to an economy-facing government should do, is that domestic borrowing should actually be left to MSMEs
and businesses.
so
But there's a
very
complete
little
opposite,
money.
eh? So close to 1 trillion shillings will be borrowed domestically.
Yes.
And the remainder, 116.2 billion, is foreign borrowing.
Yes.
So then one asks the question, I think the Cabinet Secretary should equally explain what effect that would have to MSMEs and businesses in the country.
Well, essentially what you're saying is that the next 1 year, you're again crowding out MSMEs from the pie in terms of what they can do. And we know that one of the biggest hurdles towards business growth is access to credit.
Yes.
We know this already. So what you've said through this budget, one of the things that you've said, and I know we'll be talking about this later with Ex-Eneraki and Abraham Rugo, is that you've crowded out MSMEs. That's what you've done for the next 1 year. Weak revenues test Ruto's bid to shift from debt. Of course, looking into Finance Bill 2026. That's another story making it into the Standard this morning. Opposition's shadow budget cuts Mbadi's by about 500 billion shillings. Securitized taxes levies swell debt by 1 trillion. And that's what we're looking at, that you're going to borrow to the tune of 1.1 trillion again. There's a story here on page 8 in the national pages about how schools can prevent dormitory infernos. It can actually happen. It can be prevented. And also then going into a little bit of a politics, allies say Gachagwa's comeback after retreat to shape 2027 race, that regardless of what happens, he seems to be still in the race.
So he was going to take a sabbatical then?
Yes. It might interest you to know that on page 10 of the Standard, that there's a story about how a Lebanese firm has now sued KPC for 10.6 billion shillings contract dues.
Okay.
This is the same KPC for whom there was a partial divestiture of government shares.
Which was oversubscribed according to expert Mbadi, FCPA.
But now, because of things that you didn't quite get right in the contracts, the firm has said, how about you pony up 10.6 billion shillings because we're going to kind of need that. Okay.
The president said the other day, dawa ya deni ni
kulipa.
He was telling that to Harambee Stars, so kulipa deni.
Oh, they got their thing? Okay. Boost for teachers, but free education pushed to the edge. Of course, we're talking about education, and we did see that Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba had a presser yesterday. He talked about the fact that, okay, we've seen all these things happening, things are going to remain. We're only looking at about 204 schools that have had a problem around the country, but, you know, we're going to be fine. We're going to keep the dates as they are, but then perhaps next year, not now, because, you know, already well into the second term. Next year, we're going to look at the dates, maybe reduce
Make them equal.
Yeah, the
so
length
from
of
14 weeks to around 12 weeks across board. So,
I mean, the second term right now is the longest.
Yeah.
So what they say, they're going to reduce the number, well, the length of the term.
Are we really addressing the problem, though?
Address the issue.
Thank you.
I'm yet to put it on a T-shirt, but I'm going to at some point. Address the issue.
Yeah.
Shortening the term, okay, perhaps we'll deal with one of the symptoms. But address the issue.
Address the issue. Address the issue.
If we're not addressing the issue, we're going to have a problem. Also, so, of course, we see the principal secretary being moved.
Yeah.
And another one coming in. Let's see what that is actually going to achieve. Well, it's going to be interesting. Of course, looking into the opinion pages, Daniel Nganga talks about how PPPs can deliver universal access to clean water by 2030. And others have talked about what they want in Mbadi's budget. This is Dennis Kabara. So there's a lot happening. Get yourself a copy of the Standard newspaper today. You can also get yourself a copy of the Standard e-paper. If you can't find it on the street, you can get it in your pocket. All right.
Yes. So let's go to the Daily Nation real quick. Now, a World Cup like no other is the headline. So it is a repeat of the 2010 fixture, where the 2026 tournament kicks off today in Mexico, with co-hosts facing South Africa. South Africa, Mexico. I'm at what your story.
Look, the continent is needing Mexico to win this match.
The continent.
Yes.
All right. So and we go to Ruto's election budget. Now, huge allocations for infrastructure projects like roads and railways feature in last full year budget for President Ruto before next year's general election. That's story in page 4 and page 5. Now, 4.8 trillion shillings is the amount the government plans to spend in the 2026-2027 budget. One asked the question, how are we going to fund the budget? Now, a special World Cup as 48 nations clash in expanded format. Now, for the first time in history, the world's biggest single sports event would be hosted jointly by 3 countries. Now, tell you what, there's that, the gentleman, the referee who was denied entry into the United States, landed back in Somalia, and he was received as a king. An entire football stadium was there to receive him. And they say, you know what, you're our own, we support you, we love you, and keep on doing the great job. Now, fans in a frenzy as the ultimate football fiesta kicks off today. Now, 48 teams will be competing in the expanded tournament hosted across the Americas, US, Mexico, and Canada. With the big match today, South Africa and Mexico as well taking place today. We're looking forward to that as well. We shall be having a conversation with Robinson Okenya a little bit later to just tell us the expectations and the preparations as well, because there is a show that covers World Cup right here. Now, inside Ruto's poll budget with the sweetener for voters. Now, mega infrastructure projects such as roads and the Standard Gauge Railway will receive generous funding in the president's 4.8 trillion shillings budget before the 2027 election. I reckon I needed the Standard Gauge Railway immediately got into office. I needed these roads, infrastructure projects when he got in office, because that would then have been good campaign material for me to give you my vote. As at now, I know you're doing that because of the election, and perhaps I have to ask myself the question, is it, many will call that a bribe, or it's a token? It's a token for me to vote for
persuasion.
It's persuasion. Persuade me, sir. And Treasurer CS Mbadi will today deliver a speech on this year's budget, which the government has promised is modest in new taxes to preempt public anger. Is the public angry? Is the public satisfied with this? Enough? Let's wait and see what Kenyans will say after the budget statement is given to Parliament today. Now, opposition unveils people's budget, and they say they propose higher funding for schools, hospitals, and youth jobs. That is why leader Kalonzo Musyoka addresses journalists during the presentation of the people's budget at SKM Center. Now, students' unrest spreads to 2 or 4 schools as ministry plans calendar review. We've already gone through that. And reshuffle. Did Bitok talk his way out of education docket? I don't think he talked himself out. I think he performed himself out.
Well, perhaps what he said is what was the final nail in the coffin. Like, okay, fine. It's clear that with your overt expression of what or how you think this thing should be sorted out is what basically walked him out the door.
Yeah. But in terms of this performance, how would you rate him out of 10?
Out of 10?
Yep. Where 10 is the highest score.
I don't know.
Okay, let's move.
Do you know where I stand on these education matters?
Where are the other 22 questions mount over missing Ebola units? Health Ministry has not provided details about Ebola quarantine facilities it said are being put up to boost preparedness. So, we were told there are 23 Ebola units that are being set up across the high-risk counties to ensure that you're able to deal with Ebola, right? But all you've been hearing is the quarantine facility in Nanyuki. So, where are the 22? Comment?
No comment.
It is in that speech and that statement. That's where it remains.
I think that if they were in other areas, people who reside in those communities would actually be aware that these facilities exist. It's like if a football pitch or a hospital
or a
school or a road has been put up in your area, you would know. No?
The people to give you the greatest and best feedback mechanism is the people using those facilities.
Exactly.
Never in those statements you gave us. Now, employers targeted over 100 billion shillings unpaid housing tax. Now, housing officials push for law change to empower tax agency to recover unpaid deductions as civil debt amid growing concerns over widespread non-remittance and legal enforcement gaps. Now, the State Department for Housing is seeking amendments to the Finance Bill 2026. The outstanding issue is non-remittance concentrated among some employers, equipping the collector to address it in the public interest. Okay, so what's about mambo ndio haya? As we go forward, and we have opinions here as well. Climate risk, more than just an environmental concern, and no suluhu violence isn't the solution. Even Domembio.
Okay.
Well, there's no solution. Here, Suluhu is not the president. Suluhu is the solution.
Is the solution.
Yes.
And we're saying that violence is not the solution.
Yes.
Okay. Looking into the Star and some of the, of course, it's a big one. It's the world's biggest sporting event. Many would say the world's biggest event, whether it's a sport or not, and that's the World Cup, takes place today. And who's going to shine for their country? The Star's illustration there. We're also looking at the headline there that Gachagua borrows from the Uhuru ICC playbook. Looking into terms of that. New disaster law ends years of ad hoc emergency response. A ministry to shorten second term, says Education CS Ogamba. And so just coming back into that headline where about Gachagua, is that it's believed that he'll be in stronger position to fight impeachment as the president.
Yeah.
Those are the things that we talk about when the law is very clear, and then perhaps it's not.
The law is very clear.
That will he then actually then be able to fight this impeachment? Are those the things that we're actually looking into? China-Africa Forum pushes for stronger farming deals. Expect 3 dry months before the El Nino rains. So perhaps El Nino will not come.
Not yet.
Not yet. It's going to be 3 months of dry.
So it's expected in October, November, and December.
Yes.
Oh, December. That's my birthday month, man.
Yeah, okay. Let's finish with
So you'll be swimming?
You'll be swimming during your birthday. If you don't know how to, now is the time to get
time to get a boat in Nairobi.
Exactly.
Sakaja. Fungua bwana hizo pitaro.
IG Kanja appoints Tanui as the new GSU commandant. It looks like there is a little bit of a shake-up in the MPS in terms of who's going where, but that's what it looks like for him. Also, looking at other headlines here that go into the Star, the stories that are making the headlines. Looking at that, Gachagua borrows from the Uhuru ICC playbook for his political survival, and you might wonder what that is. Former Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua is pulling out all the stops to ensure a place in the 2027 presidential ticket in a move that could trigger fresh turmoil within the united opposition. What does that mean? Tuesday, he announced a 45-day conclave at his Wamunyoro home in Nyeri, aimed at building consensus around a single presidential candidate to face President William Ruto. But insiders in Gachagua's DCP camp say the marathon discussions will not focus on opposition unity, but will center on Gachagua's own bid for the top seats.
Okay.
So he wants the thing.
Yep.
everybody who's been talking about a united opposition may not take into consideration that Rigathi Gachagua wants to be president of Kenya. So he's going to do everything that he can to make sure that he is.
Yeah.
So conclave until you see white smoke. I don't know what's going to happen, but the white smoke will be in the shape of Rigathi Gachagua.
Exactly.
That's what he wants.
Exactly.
It's probably what he's going to push for. Linda Mwananchi expansion threatens established parties. Okay. And there's alarm growing over the number of Kenyans trafficked to Cambodia and Myanmar. I don't know why the alarm is... this is one of those times when, as a journalist, you just are at a loss for words, because if it's still alarm that's growing over things that have been established, that people are having a very difficult time when it comes to looking for jobs, getting these jobs, and then getting to the other side, and it's something totally different from what you were told, what you paid for, and what you expected. Put a cap on it.
I mean, one asked even the question, immigration department at the airport, right? One asked the question, do you ask the relevant question to where this individual is going, their contact person, and are you able to communicate with them to ascertain that what they're telling you is actually factual? And as well, perhaps linking these individuals with Kenya's diplomatic corps out to the country in these countries to ensure that these individuals end up where they say they are going. I mean, it shouldn't be a shock.
It shouldn't.
It shouldn't. And you see, you've done international relations. I think that would be the strategy.
Yes.
So I should be advisor to government. Hello, sir. I am here.
There's one Dennis Aseto is here. All right, so then looking at the business day, of course, the business daily is carrying Mbadi's new dilemma in funding a 4.8 trillion shilling budget. And Kenya treads on shaky revenue base on the Middle East war. State forced to halve fuel VAT after national outcry. We'll just look, of course, it's all the numbers today. There is a notion that the power business is lucrative and must be controlled by bedfellows. George Aluru says that this morning. Tough finance bill, healthcare firm lines, and 601 million shilling specialist cancer hub in Nairobi. And when will Africa's side win a World Cup? Who's come close to that? Those are some of the things that are carried on the Business Daily today. And looking into some of those stories where we talk about, you know, the electric vehicles issue has been an issue.
EV, yes.
Yes, for the longest time. Simba Corp now invests $1 billion shillings in the electric vehicle assembly line. And so from that, we can look at one or two of those stories and how they hold some sway. All right. That there was a people's budget that was done by the opposition was interesting, and that they were able to put those numbers together to see that this is what you can actually do. We can reduce the numbers and then probably also reduce what you're going to do in terms of borrowing. That it was interesting that weak revenues test Ruto's bid to shift from debt. President William Ruto's ambitious plan to reduce Kenya's reliance on debt-funded mega projects is facing a hard fiscal reality marked by persistent revenue shortfalls, a widening budget deficit, and mounting pressure on public finances. Analysts warn that the challenges could complicate the National Treasury's efforts to reduce borrowing and shift towards increased use of private capital to finance infrastructure and other strategic development projects. The debt issue is a crippling one. If it's not handled, it will continue to be a problem. You can't have a 4.8 trillion shilling budget and a quarter of that you want to fund through borrowing. And of course, we're going to be looking at appropriations. Kelly Boss is going to be with us in just a little bit. But when you talk about where you're going to get the money from, finance bill, how you're going to spend the money from, appropriations, then if you are not able to spend the money as per budgeted, and that you really don't have enough to go around, then you're looking at a problem. And that your revenue then goes to 70% debt payment. Then there's a problem. And so that's why it looks difficult if we're looking at Finance Bill 2026. And we also know that the Finance Bill, at some point, having been discussed and debated and accepted by Parliament, will then become the Finance Act, and then you will know for sure that is how you're going to finance the budget into the next year.
You know, if you look at the people's budget versus Mbadi, one asks the question, there is the aspect of debt where in the 4.8 trillion shillings that we want to, that is our budget, there is the debt question where it is the first vote that you have to deal with, and how much are we planning to pay? Over $1 trillion plus.
Yep.
That together with the fact that you're going to borrow again at 1.1 trillion shillings to fund this budget. So the debt question and the debt registry that we ought to know, also the odious debt question, must be addressed for us to say, as Kenya, we know what it is you're paying for, and the monies that got lost, that monies that never got into the country, that was misused, the individuals ought to pay it.
Indeed. They must. You're talking about what would win or what would lose.
Yes.
So Kelly Boss is going to come in and have a look at the numbers for us, the biggest losers and winners of this budget, which is going to carry on into a conversation that we will have at a later point during this special coverage of Budget 2026-2027. We're going to hand over now to Kelly Boss to look at those numbers for us. Kelly.
Thank you very much, Ndu and Aseto, for setting up this conversation. And that's exactly what's in our dailies. And of course, we'll extend that coverage live here on KTN. And of course, we are doing a nice matchup with the Situation Room, which is nice. But I'm going to go through a budget overview of how much is it, first of all, and where that money goes. Just an overview first, So for starters, for example, we have the general budget, which is around 4.81 trillion Kenyan shillings. That amount right there is what the government thinks it can use to run government, expenditures, service debt, and perhaps also do a little bit of development. And I'll tell you why I'm saying a little bit of development. So the numbers you're seeing right there is that big 4.81 trillion. And of course, this after review might go up, Ndu and Aseto, because on the previous budget on this day, the appropriation committee came up with 4.2 trillion. In the end, that ended up being 4.6 trillion. So that 4.8 trillion is just a number that the government thinks could fit, but in the end, we don't know how much that how far up that will go. And of course, that is a 2.7% growth. This financial year is a very critical year for the government, especially building up to the election. So you'd see a lot of fiscal discipline by the government. That's why it's only 2.7% increase. That's 124 billion right there. So there is fiscal discipline. They're thinking about how can they put up this stance that may allow them not to look like they are not fiscally disciplined, especially owing to the growth in deficit and our loans out there. And of course, the funding gap, which is really critical, and I'd like to stay there for long. That's why I've gone through the bigger number quite quickly. The 1.1 trillion is very important, and it's a 5.4% of the GDP. And let me just explain that 5.4% and what it means, When you look at the 5.4% of the GDP would mean, and how you calculate and arrive to that 5.4% is, there is the nominal GDP of a country, where you look at the country and say, how much is this country worth? How much our assets worth? How much is the economy at large worth? So the treasury depends on the national statistics bodies to come up with projection of how much we are worth. And you'd find that in general in Kenya, the things that we have and everything in terms of development and assets and everything, we have around 17.6 trillion Kenyan shillings. That's what we are worth. That's what, if we say, what are we worth in general, that's what we are worth in terms of everything that we have. So that is, the 5.4% is arrived at by getting that over 17 and then times 100%. And so investors would look at that number and say, is this country worth investing in? So if our debt is 5.4 of that number, it's worth it. Looking at this other side of the money, of where it goes exactly, it's interesting. I'd want you later on to look at the 17.5% there of the development expenditure, which is glaring a little bit, but the recurrent expenditure forms up 4.6% of the budget, which is over 2 trillion Kenyan shillings. That is what the government is planning to spend on, salaries and every other thing about, just recurrent expenditure. But according to the Constitution, it requires that when you come up with this budget, you have to, allocate at least 30% to development expenditure. We are doing 17.5% of that, yet we are still borrowing. So I don't know, because, if you don't invest in development, then where where will the money come from? If you develop, then the economy might grow. And then those consolidated fund services is 1.5 trillion. Those are mandatory because this is what goes to debt servicing, paying our interests, paying pension funds. Even as we move on, that is not touched even by the parliament. They cannot revise that up or down. And then, yes, this is the consolidated fund services. Of course, it's 1.5 trillion. It's rarely touched because it's so important. We have to pay our debt and we have to pay pensioners and stuff like those. And then, of course, and here is where also the judiciary lies. Constitutional officers like the judiciary get their money or salaries straight from the consolidated fund services. And then interest payments is up 1.2 trillion. And that is just goes to service our debt. So moving on, again, another thing to look at is the Finance Bill 2026. Of course, in the Finance Bill, of course, is how the government thinks it will raise money from taxes and other avenues and meet the budget expenditures. Yeah. So the Finance Bill tells you where the money will come from. We have looked at the Finance Bill and picked up a few things that we think have changed. And of course, the most contentious is the mobile phones and wireless devices going for 25% excise duty. And according to the Cabinet Secretary, John Mbadi, he says this 25% will be taxed after you buy the phone or after you put on the phone. Yeah, so yeah, that's one. And then another one on this Finance Bill that where the government thinks it can raise money is on green transport energy. And this is on electric buses and everything. That is VAT exempt. And quickly, just to say, previously it was zero rated, and VAT exempt means anything as we move forward, anything that these manufacturers or assemblers would use on their, putting together these electric buses and everything, they will knock down that price on you as the consumer. That's exempt. If it was zero rated, then it would be different. Now on lotteries and 20% withholding, this is another place where the government is putting their hands deep inside that pocket of a gambler and guys who do the lotteries. And that would mean if you win 20% of your win, so maybe you put 100 shillings, you win 10K, that means 9,900 shillings, 20% of that is what they are trying to put their hands inside. Of course, there's another, as we move forward, there's another 5% they're already taking. So the government thinks putting their money, their hands inside of these things is usually good, of course, to control betting. And then on scrap metal, it's usually very hard to tax this sector. And of course, the government, even as John Mbadi was talking to us the other day, he said they're looking into bringing in the informal sector into the tax base because it finds that some guys who are untaxed, except when they buy bread. So here's the scrap metal. The retailer of the scrap metal will retain 1.5%, and then they'll knock down that price when they convert, because you can't sell scrap metal to a local Kenyan. You go and make something, then you knock down that price to the one who is buying. That is the Finance Bill and how the government is planning to increase or widen the tax base. And of course here, again, the Finance Bill tells you something. It tells you where the government is going. In this particular case, there is no tax particularly here on crypto, but it's telling you how the government is going digital and is trying to automate things. In this case, they want the guys who are operating crypto and virtual assets to reveal the user data, meaning the name of this person, their wallet, that means what's inside that account and the profits they are making. And if you don't, and you're operating in Kenya, a penalty of 1 million. And this is according to even the European Union rules. So the government is trying to put a stance of, yeah, we are ready for crypto. And of course, investors will look at this as a good thing. That is the Finance Bill. And then of course, there will be a little relief, which is sort of an oxymoron, on the pump, because the Finance Bill proposes to reduce by half the road maintenance levy, which is usually 3 shillings, making it 1 shillings 50 cents. And that would mean after this goes through and everything, you'd find that the pump price will go down 1 shilling 50 cents. So that's just to cushion us amid the crisis that is going on and the macroeconomics, just protect Kenyans. Well, that is the finance bill, and as I told you earlier on, the finance bill is exactly how the government intends to raise money, and the finance appropriation bill is how the government intends to, use that money. And then Kenya Revenue Authority, out of field tax, this is coming for you because your pay as you earn and your VAT tends to give KRA your data. So KRA is saying they want a situation where, because Kelly has pay as you earn, they have my data, they can prompt me directly. So I just accept a prompt instead of me, manually going to their platform to file my taxes. They can auto do that using my data. So they're trying to get these rules on. Yeah, and that is the finance bill and how the government is trying to raise money to fund that budget right there. Ndu and Aseto.
Of course, Sir Kelly, thank you very much for giving us that update. Of course, we're going to come back to you in a little bit to get a little bit more in terms of information. It's Budget Day 2026-2027, and it's a special coverage of that through the whole day until the point where the Cabinet Secretary, John Mbadi, is going to give the presentation before Parliament today in terms of the budget estimates, where the money is going to come from, how it's going to be spent, what is going to be borrowed in debt. And these are some of the numbers that we're looking at today. So we are having that special coverage. It is the Situation Room on KTN this morning, broadcasting simulcast on KTN as well as SpiceFM this morning, so that we can have a breadth and length in terms of what is going on, and of course going in depth into a lot of these numbers. And so what that does is it allows us at 7 o'clock, beyond 7 o'clock, to talk with two economists. Abraham Rugo, Dr. Abraham Rugo will join us with XN Iraqi. And we're going to be looking into how exactly this money will be spent, where it's going to come from, and what makes sense economically when we're taking this budget into consideration.
There's something that just came at the tail end of the presentation by Kelly Boss, where Kenya now is looking for new laws and new powers so that they can autofill your returns. And one asked the question, they've always had the data, why not do it? They always subject us to these queues to go file, yet they have the data. I think it would be important as well for KRA to explain to Kenyans why that is important, so that as well you're not taken to court for lack of public participation, because wananchi as well need to be part and parcel of the process.
Indeed, they do.
Yeah.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.